Hey, what is up, guys? You're going to remember this day, aren't you? What an exciting time to be in markets today. Lovely, lovely day indeed. Black Monday fears brewing over the weekend. Everybody losing their effing minds. Crypto finally starting to catch up with the equity market crash. We've got a lot to talk about today, from what's going on with the trade war, what's going on with the equity markets, what's going on with the crypto markets. Answering your questions, second half of the stream. Let's get into it. So, the Black Monday fears. That's something that Jim Cramer said, by the way. So, take that with a grain of salt. Now, when S&P 500 futures opened, they opened super red, and they were actually down 5% today. We are now about 2 hours away from U.S. market open. We've recovered a bit. Now we're only down 1.8, 1.9%. Yeah, let's see what happens. Anyway, the Black Monday fear. It's a nice narrative to sell. It's back to the 1987 stock market crash when prices literally dropped 20% in a single day. I think that there's definitely a case to be made for Monday being a pretty shit day in stock markets, but 20%, I don't know. It feels a bit like one of those things that Jim Cramer would say. Let's just say that. But let's see how it goes. Currently, we have had a recovery on the futures markets. Means there's some form of vague optimism that things are not going to go to total zero on a stock market open. And actually, it's a weird thing. I watch the markets. I'm watching the markets and decided to stay up late last night to watch the futures opens because I'm an addict and I have to, see everything going on all the time in the markets. Anyway, it's been pretty interesting to watch this whole thing playing out. And actually, I might buy some stocks later today. Feels like one of those things I might want to do. Anywho, continuing. Ozzy shared this. Paying first, history shows that mid 45 to 4,300 is possible. This is the 1 month Bollinger Band chart. So the midline referred to as the basis is equivalent to 365-day moving averages. Currently at 5,400, the lower band represents the 2 standard deviation from the basis, currently 4,260. When we lose the midline, price often reaches the lower band. We've lost the midline, by the way. S&P 500, if that were to happen, that's another further 15% crash. I guess if we just speed run the whole damn thing, and we do have a Black Monday, and stock markets literally just crash 20% in 3 days, well, just pull off the damn plaster, get it done, get it just over with, and then we can reassess from there. If that stuff were to happen, that'd bring us all the way back down to really the 2023 highs. So retesting all the way back down there. Current stock market projections based on the futures markets actually bring us back to the low of April 2024 around the Iran war fear thing that was going on. We'll see what happens. But currently, oh man, look at that. Look at that RSI on the S&P 500, man. Yikes, 20-3. That is some seriously oversold market right there. Doesn't mean it can't go lower. Doesn't mean it can't become more oversold or stay oversold for a long time. Okay. Interesting, nevertheless. In theory, a very heavy oversold signal should signal that there's some buying opportunities coming, that there are some, perhaps a relief bounce on the way. It's a very difficult time to navigate the markets because we're always just one tweet away from chaos. Someone needs to take Donald Trump's phone away from. But it's true. We are very much in a headline risk scenario where what gets mentioned in the news, the retaliatory tariffs from China, the retaliation from the EU, market mainly prices in bad news horrifically. And when we do have good news, there has been a lot of good news. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Doesn't move the needle at all in the markets. Okay. Now, the VIX had a big spike today. It's correcting a little bit, but the VIX actually went all the way up to about 60 today. Now, that historically is in line with some of the worst market crashes that we've ever seen. This is just taking a little historical foray down the history of a market crash. The COVID crash topped out at 84. And that was literally the entire world was ending. We were shutting down the entire global economy because super mega bug was going to kill everybody. Okay. Versus a trade war. Now, trade war obviously is very impactful for a whole variety of reasons, and the fears of a global recession and all this stuff. Panic is definitely in the streets right now. But just for perspective, okay? February 18 crash, VIX spiked right up to around these levels. Same in August 15. So this kind of level tends to generally coincide with sort of peak fear sentiment, but that can go higher. Not to say that it's definitively peaked. That could still go higher. So a lot of variables as we go into US stock open here in a few hours, okay? Jackus, some interesting thoughts here. So we're currently experiencing a black swan event with the VIX opening up above 60, only seen 3 times in history. August 5th, 2024, COVID, and 2008. Everything is at a complete extreme, and all markets opened up Monday trading, piercing through important lows. Selling at such situations historically shown to be the worst decision. That said, what is important to see is de-escalation in the process, seeing daily candles show strong buybacks across the board. By the end of it, reclaiming levels, VIX dropping volatility and coming back down, all ideally followed by some important announcement, probably the most important one with Trump saying he'll postpone the tariff implementation by 90 days so negotiations can begin. That would provide a lot of relief to the markets. If Trump was to come out, yes, infamous, I made the terrible mistake of trying to short Fartcoin today. Lost a few $100, but I got a pretty good XRP short in last night. So took that money out of the market, took the win, left a few extra grand in the futures account, took the rest of it out and just remove that from the market. I don't know. Buy the wife something nice. You can still win on bad days, okay, guys? So just FYI. But yeah, Fartcoin, gosh darn, what is up with that thing? Why won't it go down? Why can't I short it anyway? Where are we at? If we were not going to see that, then you want to focus on further capital protection until further notice, because this could turn into a much lengthy problem instead of a quick panic shakeout in COVID style. Now, if Trump comes out and says we are going to start negotiations, and there's a lot of indications that negotiations are going to start across the board, even with the big players like China and stuff like that. If we get that 90-day, I mean, just a theory, right? If we were to get something like a 90-day reprieve, that provides us an incredible window for May, June to be very interesting in markets, because M2's pumping, the tariff narrative changes around a little bit, and we start to see some interesting things potentially playing out there. Anyway, big day for the VIX, okay? Now, bad day for markets though, okay? China's Hang Seng Index slaughtered today. Worst day in 20 years or something like that. Hong Kong down 13, Taiwan 9, Japan 9, Italy 8, Singapore 8, Sweden 7. You can see on down the list here. Absolutely savage, disgustingly brutal day in global markets. Donald Trump's not just crashing the U.S. stock markets. He's crashing everything. Global markets, commodities markets, crypto markets. Everyone is feeling the hurt, which means that everybody is going to have to come and somehow negotiate an end to this insanity. Decode here sharing this global financial crisis, COVID tariffs, the only 3 times in the last 20 years, the weekly RSI has fallen below 30. Just so you understand the level of panic and fear and unique time that we are in the market right now, okay? The charts are showing that this is a very unique and rare moment. Can we go lower? Yes, of course, we can always go lower. Okay, we might see some brutal sell-offs today as hedge funds get margin called and stuff like that. But the RSI readings and a lot of other charts we're going to show you here in a few minutes coincide with things that are generally closer to a bottoming event in markets. But we'll see. We are in uncharted waters. And again, headline risk is intense right now. So you have to keep that in mind. Any trades I've been making are like for a few hours usually, right? Very, very short moves basically in the market. I'm not comfortable leaving anything open for very long. Fajal is saying the other side of this mess is going to be glorious, and I absolutely agree with that. China discusses front-loading stimulus to counter tariff hit. Man, China's going to pump trillions more in, aren't they? Trillions more. Beautiful. Love to see it. Zero hedge. China has 3 options: concede defeat to whatever Trump demands, devalue the yuan by 20-40%, and unleash the biggest fiscal stimulus in history, talking $2 to $3 trillion, which puts its debt off the chart. Probably number 3. Looks like they're going number 3. China's going to start printing, baby. Gold cryptos, I want to share this with you as well. Again, hot takes I enjoy. I think you might enjoy them too. The time is nearing when another generational wealth opportunity is presenting itself. Get excited. This is a zero-sum game, and a lot of money is in the process of being transferred to other participants. Ignore the noise. The market ebbs and flows. People say this time is different. Write 1,000-word tweets on how and why it is. The only way you lose now is through a combination of leverage, having no cash on hand, and listening to the monkeys on Twitter telling you how this will last for years. Things usually don't, do they? Many of you have seen this sort of market sentiment before with COVID, yet you're like a dog going back to your own vomit. It's brutal, brutal. Look, there's a lot of opportunities right now, okay? Lark, when to buy, right now or wait? Look, there's a lot of things that are very, very oversold, and you have to ask yourself the question: if you need to think about yourself. And do you think that it's over? If you think that it is definitively over and that the stock markets are going to go like Great Depression levels, down 70, 80%, then now's a terrible time to buy literally anything. You should be running for the hills and selling everything you have. But generally, these kinds of fear and sentiment and panic moments, okay, tend to come closer to bottoming scenarios. But we need macro to turn around a bit. We need positive news around the tariff situation. There is positive news. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But you got to think about risk reward here, right? What is the risk if you start buying now? Okay. Somebody asked a similar question in Discord, but the other way around. Should I sell right now? So I thought, well, okay, what's the risk reward of selling right now? The risk reward of selling or buying. Let's do buying. The risk reward of buying right now is that you're wrong and you lose a bunch of money, right? So you buy today and wake up tomorrow and Bitcoin's gone down 10% and it goes down 20, 30, 40% for the rest of the year. Now, does that mean you should go all in today with that being the risk? Depends on your risk tolerance. Perhaps you look at the current market and go, shit, it's probably a good time to get some and be dollar cost averaging in a little bit, right? Now, the reward potential, obviously, is that if you think this macro event's going to get resolution in the next few months, that there's going to be negotiations, that things are going to get worked out, then buying into this extreme fear in the market usually is a good time to buy. Okay? So as long as you're not investing more money than you can afford to lose, there's your risk reward analysis. Okay. Good time to buy whiskey. It's one of those days, isn't it? One of those days for sure. I posted this on X earlier. This tariff event is our new COVID crash. Metric wise, it's very equivalent to it. Short term seems scary. I get it. No one likes red days. Market's doing the worst since the worst crashes in recorded history. The thing is that post COVID crash, what happened? The greatest market boom of all time. Global M2 is still pumping. You may forget about that, but it's happening. The Fed will be forced to cut. If job markets weaken more, then QE could even come in. QE requires a crisis, but a massive unemployment surge could be the crisis that would get the Fed to actually take action. Okay. JP Morgan is even saying that emergency rate cuts could be coming. That's JP freaking Morgan, man. The JP Morgan guy is not some rando dude on Twitter. JP Morgan, one of the masters of the financial universe, is literally out here saying that we could see emergency rate cuts as a response to this crisis. Now, they're not coming to bail out capital markets. They're coming to bail out job markets, because with the crisis going on like this, unemployment, Anyway, continuing. Guys, if you're trading these crypto markets and there's a lot of money to be made, of course, if you have the right mindset, look, you got your spot bags. I got my spot bags, and that's one thing, okay? Now, look, my spot Bitcoin, still, I don't know, 1,000% profit or whatever. It's fine. It's fine, okay? Some of my spot altcoin bags looking pretty effing rough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, man. But it is what it is. But you can still make money trading, right? I had an excellent XRP short last night. Lots of great long opportunities to get on the bounces and short the rejections, all stuff. But you need a great place to do that, guys. That place, BitUnix, great exchange to be trading on. With the hottest exchanges these days. There's no KYC, no VPN. What does that mean? That means that it doesn't matter where you are, okay, what country you live in, you can use BitUnix, okay? So I know not all you guys have the best availability of options for exchanges where you can long and short. Shorting, of course, in a bearish market scenario becomes a pretty good way to juice some money in out of the market. BitUnix got you covered. All the top coins, deep liquidity. Link down below. You're going to get $500 trading bonus, 20% deposit bonus. So that's $1,000 deposited, $200 back into your account, and a $10 USDT sign up bonus. That's just so you can do your first trade for free, basically, on the exchange, so you can test it out. Link down below. Go check it out. Okay, so good news. Okay, it's not all doom and gloom. All right, it's not all doom and gloom, because negotiations are already starting. People are flocking because guess what? There's multiple things at play here. One, nobody wants to see a massive global depression. It's bad for everybody everywhere. A giant, or even just a global recession, not to be a depression, but a global recession is bad for all countries, and all countries recognize this. The stock market's crashing across the globe today is an indication for leaders around the world that they have to wake the F up and get to the table and start negotiating. Critically. Because they need to resolve the crisis. Donald Trump created the crisis. They need to go deal with him and resolve the crisis. Largely on his terms because he holds a lot of the cards in most cases, unless the rest of the world bands together to exclude the most powerful market and biggest market that everyone has access to. Everybody wants to get into U.S. markets. That's the thing. It's 1/3 of global consumption. Everybody wants to be selling to the U.S. So people are going to come to the table and make deals. And we're seeing a lot of countries already hop on board. So UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer seeks new trade deal with the United States to remove tariffs. UK is on board for a trade deal, okay? Japan, the 3rd biggest economy in the world still. Pretty big deal, okay? UK is still top 10 economy. Japan will present President Donald Trump with a package of measures to win relief from U.S. tariffs, Prime Minister said on Monday ahead of mooted call between the leaders. There you go. Vietnam is making a deal. Cambodia is making a deal. Israel's making a deal. India, top 10 global economy. They came out and said, we're going to make a deal. Argentina's making a deal. A lot of countries are going to push to make deals because why the heck wouldn't they? Because they need to have access to U.S. markets. If they don't, if they exclude themselves, if they screw over their domestic companies, all these countries are going to have incredible crises on their hands. They're going to have incredible unemployment crises, huge GDP drops. It's going to be a crisis for any country that doesn't come and play ball, essentially, or that depends on U.S. markets, okay? Now, somewhere like China, that only, I think, is a 10 to 15% or something like that of their exports go to the U.S., it's a little less critical. China has cards. China can play ball to some extent, and they're going to negotiate tooth and nail. It'll be fierce, but there'll be some kind of deal made with the Chinese over the coming months, but that'll be probably one of the last things to get resolved, in my opinion. The EU, there's a lot of dissent already within the EU. You have the Italians and a couple other countries, the Irish, saying, guys, what are we doing? We need to make a deal here. Whereas you have, like, Emmanuel Macron being like, well, let's go fight with America. And like, yeah. Guys, just accept and cut your losses. Come back in 2028. That's one opinion. That's one opinion. Here's some interesting charts for you. Sven shared this. He said there's a lot of 1987 crash talk on Twitter right now. A little fun fact. The 1987 crash was the low, never to be touched again. So if today is, actually, let's check the futures markets again. 1.8%, fine. If today is the day and we are getting a Black Monday style crash where it's just Sodom and Gomorrah out there, man, okay? It's probably going to mark the low. Now, recovery is going to take a long time. Don't get me wrong, okay? We're looking at, months upon months of recovery, especially if it takes a long time to make deals and all that sort of stuff. Fine, okay? But just perspective there, okay? Here's some interesting charts here from Subu. Subu Trade says, today could be the second day in a row where the S&P 500 fell more than 4.5%. This only happened during some of the worst crashes in ever. Here's what the S&P 500 did next, okay? That's a lot of green on the, I'm just going to say it's a lot of green on the chart, man. It's not always green, but it's a lot of green on the chart. Usually horrific crashes are followed by markets going up, okay? And in basically all cases, think about that, in basically all cases, after 2 consecutive days of 4.5% declines, aka massive crashes in the stock market, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 2 months, 1 month, a year later, markets are on average green. There are a few exceptions to that, okay? 1987, for example, we ended up 22% higher. Now, okay, May 14th, 1940, well, those were rough times. The world was at war and all that stuff. We ended down 2.4% for the year. Okay. 1933, height of the Great Depression. We ended up 7% down in the year. Okay. So now your question is this the Great Depression? Is this the end of all things? Or is this more likely a modern scenario in markets where odds favor that markets will be higher later this year? Okay. Another one here, pretty similar information, but gives you the same kind of outlook here. 71% of S&P 500 stocks have crashed below their lower Bollinger Band levels. Here's every time this has happened before and what the S&P 500 did next. Again, you can see that on average, by a year later, prices are up. Now, 2008 stands out as a pretty tough year because in that situation, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and 6 months later, prices were lower, but the year did end 6% higher, okay? 2011, we saw a few months of rough price action before ending the year 15% higher, okay? 2020, a few months of rough price action, 2 months approximately before ending the year much higher, okay? So just, again, there is some of the statistics for you. Now, past returns are not equate to future returns, and we are in unprecedented territory, but still. Here's people using Bill Ackman as a counter indicator. So this is from the not Jerome Powell account. But here's Jerome Powell coming out and having all kinds of negative shit to say, basically at market bottoms, ranting about COVID on CNBC and how it's, everything's terrible. Persistent inflation pressures rant right here. Treasury market volatility rant right here. Tariff tantrum on X right here. Food for thought. JP Morgan Asset Management's Bob Michelle says the Federal Reserve may have to cut interest rates before the next meeting in May. If we get an emergency rate cut, I mean, that's crazy. Potentially bad for the markets. Usually emergency rate cuts only come during times of emergency, and markets can often go much lower as a result. We'll see what happens. Of course, maybe it'll give some short-term win, at the very least for a relief rally. And because this is such a headline-driven thing, and it takes only a few tweets from Donald Trump to reverse this whole damn thing to some extent. It's going to take Microsoft a while to recover if he comes out and says, trade war over tomorrow, we've made deals. Anyway, still, the fact that JP Morgan's talking about emergency rate cuts should have everybody paying attention. Raoul Powell sharing some interesting thoughts here. People, we have to understand that we have a macro hedge fund manager running the treasury, not an ex-central banker. He deeply understands liquidity impacts and how to drive financial conditions to drive liquidity and how that in turn drives the economy and markets. His entire strategy is to lower the three legs of financial conditions, the dollar, rates, and oil, to goose the business cycle. We are at the bottom of the business cycle right now, by the way. So being at the bottom of the business cycle, guess what? That leaves a lot of room to go up. As long as they don't completely screw the pooch here and cause some kind of global recession that takes years and years to recover from. But, unless there's really just nobody at the helm here of this whole strategy, then that could happen. But my guess is that this is a controlled implosion of markets to achieve these very things: get the dollar down, get the rates down, get oil down, so they can then juice up the markets later on. Because if Donald Trump and his administration destroy global markets to such an extent and cause a global recession, guess what? All of the hopes and dreams they had for fixing the economy and stuff like that go down the drain, because tax revenue is going to fall. Millions of people are going to lose their jobs and all that kind of stuff. Okay. John sharing this, saying those thinking the Fed won't intervene, they will. These kinds of moves muck up the plumbing bad. My guess is between 4,000 and 4,500, they will take over. That's for the S&P 500. So that's another 15, 20% down from here. Tomorrow, a likely flush and on bottom on Tuesday. 1987, 2000, 2011, and 2020 crash moves saw the bottom on Tuesday AM before markets finally reversed. Okay, interesting. Bitcoin, of course, smashing into a new low for the year at $74,400, bouncing a little bit back up to 77K right now. I know a lot of people are rushing to say the bottom is definitively in. We have a lot of risk right now. Sue, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, finally went and got a haircut this weekend. And on my list of things, my wife's been, on me about it for like weeks. Like, you got to get your haircut. Okay, I finally got my haircut. Anyway, thank you very much. Let's see. Let's see how that plays out. Okay. Now, of course, potential bullish RSI divergence there. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But really depends on what stock markets do. Okay. Our fate is 100% tied to the risk on, risk off attitudes of the general investing public. And that means what happens in stock markets is going to be affecting this. Okay. So just FYI. Tony the Bull Severino posted this. Bitcoin USD has triggered a perfect TD9 sequential buy setup on the weekly charts. Fascinating. Very, very interesting that. Honey XBT sharing this. Here's some hopium for you. Last time we had a one-day death cross. Coincided with a gargantuan effing market crash. This was actually the yen carry trade crash back in the day, after which markets slowly ground higher. Let's see what happens. XRP was a nice short on the loss of the 200-day there, man, but I closed it too early. Closed it at $1.80. I thought I'm gonna front run this crash area over here. Nope, went right down here to this area of previous price resistance, flipping that into price support. Probably pretty key area to hold on any sort of further downturn here for XRP, to hold this, say, 150 to 160 zone. Let's see how it plays out. Was that the bottom? Time will tell. It's pretty early to be running to call bottoms right now because there's so much fear in the markets and so much potential for chaos on US market open, or chaos throughout the week with headline risk all over the place. Okay, so you don't have to be taking undue risks in these markets. Okay, guys. Solana got slaughtered today, much like other coins, went down to $95, back up to spot on $100 right now, basically. Brutal. That's wild. From the point that it lost this, came back up, kissed the death it right there, which is basically a bearish retest on the previous line of price support, turning that into resistance and shattering down lower. Crazy stuff. Ethereum, one of the most disgusting charts in the entire crypto market. At least Solana put in a new high this cycle. Ethereum didn't even put it, you had to go about 20-30% higher to put in a new high. Came down to $1,400 today. We've had about $250 million of on-chain liquidations today. Brutal day. Some people got carried out on a stretcher on this one. Imagine losing $120 million, man. Two guys, and maybe it was the same guy on two different wallets, but brutal. Yes, everybody. It's good. It's good advice for everybody. Okay, hydrate, folks. I know we're running a bit long in the presentation. We got one more coin to talk about. Let me answer your questions. Okay, so last one. Oh my God. Fart coin, man. It is literally the new paradigm of money. You may not believe it. You may not want to believe it. You may think it's silly. I don't have any currently, FYI. But fart coin has been unimaginably resilient in this sell-off. I mean, look, it's still 46 cents. It's one of the only coins in the market right now trading at its 20-day EMA. That's absurd. Effing fart coin. We are not a serious industry, and I love it. Oh my gosh, it's going to crash at some point. It's got to crash at some point, right? It can't keep this BS up. It's currently in a downtrend, by the way. I moved back up here like 50 cents. Would not be surprising. We'll see. I'd be interested in fart coin much lower. Personally, I like fart coin. I think it's a funny meme. Probably has a pretty good potential to bounce back when people get back into risk on attitudes. But surprising price performance today, let's say. Let's talk, guys. What do you want to talk about? You and your hot air coin. I know. Lark talking loud but saying nothing. I hope I'm providing lots of value for you guys. If I'm not providing value, then I'm sorry. I do my best. I'm trying to find all the best charts and alpha and expert opinions that I can present here for you guys. Give some of my own takes on stuff. If that's not useful for you, don't know what to tell you. M2 to the rescue. Let's hope so. Let's hope so, guys. Been having fun doing tiny fart swings. Nice. There's been some great trading opportunities. Like Lark, hide your portfolio from your wife. I talk to her about what's going on in the portfolio all the time. She knows. WIF used to be awesome. Do you reckon it'd be a good time to buy some more of it now? I mean, look, like I said, it really applies to any crypto asset. Everything's in a downtrend right now. Okay. If we see bottoming in the stock markets over the next few days, which probably is going to require some degree of negotiations on the trade stuff. I mean, think about this. If we get like the UK and Japan and India to all sit down and agree to negotiated deals for the trade stuff, I mean, that's 3 of the top 10 global economies that made a deal. So it leaves the EU, where there's a lot of dissent with EU members about what retaliatory tariffs could even look like, or if they even want to do retaliatory tariffs. So there's schisms there. China then becomes the big one. But if we see, again, imagine that, if we resolve a lot of the issues, that might actually make the market calm down a little bit. Okay, but it's going to take time. Deals don't just happen in 5 seconds. It's going to take maybe a few weeks negotiations and stuff like that, get enough deals signed, et cetera, et cetera. But look, I think when it comes to any of these meme coins, whether it be fart coin or dog with hat or Pepe, something like that, the good quote unquote memes, right? I'm not talking about like Moodang or that dead squirrel or anything like that. I think those memes I just mentioned have really good mind share and probably a good potential to bounce back when things start bouncing back. But between now and then, be careful, right? Because if we enter into an extended bearish period for the market, right? Then these memes, just because they're down 90%, doesn't mean they can't go down another 90%. So just FYI and be careful on that, okay? So if you're betting on meme coins now, you're betting that the trade stuff gets resolved, that markets recover in the next few months, and that there's going to be adequate upside to make that bet pay off for you, not just lose 90% of your money again. Lark, can we assume that the 4-year cycle is over? Gosh, it feels like it sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, we have to see what plays out this year. If, and by the way, just like to share this on Bitcoin real quick, because this is a very, very important chart. And then I'll answer your question a little more in depth while we're looking at this. This blue line on the chart right here is the 50-week EMA. Now, we've got 6 days and 13 hours for the price of Bitcoin to close above that. If the price of Bitcoin closes back over that 50-week EMA, okay. If it doesn't, bad news bears, man. And that probably ends any sort of talk of a 4-year cycle playing out. Now, the 4-year cyclists might, oh, well, but it kind of topped in like the first week of January, so it's technically 2025, so it's still kind of 4 years. Yeah, it's sort of not really. I think basically what we're seeing right now is crypto being much more than before wedded to the fate of equity markets. And as such, the Bitcoin halving cycles may be a lot less relevant. And I think they're going to get less relevant anyway. Whether that's this cycle that starts happening, definitely by next cycle, I think the Bitcoin halving cycle becomes basically irrelevant at that point. And look, we largely follow credit cycles and business cycle and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, but that's good news. It's good news if we're not actually following the 4-year cycle, because it means that we then have potential for much more regular bullish price action and more following of the stock markets, because there are big stock market crashes that can last years. Yes, that's absolutely true. But in general, stocks usually do pretty good. April showers bring May flowers. I like the mentality. Are we heading to 50K this week? It's certainly not my base case by any means. 50K this week for BTC feels overly bearish. Now, if equity markets crash 20% today, then you know what? All bets are off, and I would not be shocked to see something like that happen. But I think heading to 50K is probably the kind of, at least in the short term, if we end up, this is it, and we're not going to have any highs for a year or two, for example, then 50K later on would not shock me. But I think certainly this week could be a pretty effing surprise move. But I am ready for anything in these markets. I've been around long enough to know that shit can hit the fan real fast. Lark, I had to de-risk by selling some cryptos and lost, so I didn't get liquidated. It hurts, but feeling much better now, even with only 4x leverage. Is crazy how low. Oh, Winstead, I've been there. I know how you feel. It's tough, but having that sort of axe, let's say, hanging over your head, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. And look, this is why when it comes to using leverage, oh, you got to keep it so low. Keep the stop losses on, keep leverage super low. When I trade, I trade very tight stop losses, and I get stopped out sometimes, but I win enough that the short stop losses can keep me sane. Let's put it that way. But if you're sort of borrowing against your major stack, you're borrowing against your Bitcoin, your Solana, stuff like that, don't borrow too much. Don't borrow too much, right? Keep your liquidation levels down at like ridiculously low levels, right? And 4x leverage, yeah, may not sound that crazy when you start leveraging it up and you're like, it's not going to go, and then it goes that low. So yeah, I'm happy you're feeling better. It's tough. It's a tough call to make some days, man, but you got to live to fight another day. That's what it is. If you get totally destroyed, and back in February when we had the big crash, I had people I know who are writing up and just saying, I got totally wiped out. It's all gone. Years of work. It's like, shit, never take on that much risk. Where are my big boots Latinas at? Yeah, I mean, I think Latinas are pretty known for having big boots. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that somewhere. I think one of those rappers was singing about how they all have these big boots. Yeah, big boots, man. Anyway, all in on ETH. John, you love pain and suffering, man. Yeah. Look, ETH has been absolutely rough. If I'm going to buy a big cap coin, I think Solana is a much more interesting bet comparatively to ETH right now. ETH has just lost so much in terms of mind share, and you see old on-chain whales capitulating and stuff like that. And the sentiment around ETH has been just dog shit for months and months on end. Yeah. Goblin Town. Guess we're all having drinks at the Goblin Town bar now, guys. We have just started a new bull market. COVID Black Swan just flashed again. Pay attention. Fake Dan. I love the mentality, man. And this is the thing, is like I said, I'm probably gonna buy some stocks later. Sounds like something worth spending a few bucks on. If they go lower, screw it. I'll buy a few more. I'm not gonna go like all in with every penny of my money. No, I like having a nice big cash position, especially in such uncertain times. It's no problem to re-enter markets later on, when it comes to crypto, when things actually start showing a little bit of strength and reversal coming into the market. But usually, and again, we shared plenty of statistics. You guys can make your own decision. I'm not trying to tell you what to think here. I'm sharing statistics, I'm sharing data, I'm sharing charts, and I hope that it's helpful for you in making some of your own decisions here. But yeah, this is in a lot of ways, like this is the black swan. Donald Trump's crazy trade tariff stuff is the black swan. That damn cardboard board that he held up, that was the black swan right there. He may as well just pulled a black swan out, held it by the neck and say it, I'm screwing everybody on tariffs, dropped the swan and walked away. That would have been the power move. It's interesting because last week when the initial rumor spread that it was just going to be 10% tariffs across the board and everybody, the market loved it. The market was pumping. Market's like, oh yeah, 10% tariffs. That's fucking nothing, man. Let's go. The market can absorb that. That's fine. Then he pulls out that damn piece of cardboard. It's like everyone's getting like, gargantuan insane tariffs, and everybody lost their minds. Understandably so. Just stay in the game. You'd rather have a horse in the race than no horse at all. Amen to that. Pectra upgrade will make Ethereum great again. Fingers crossed. I'm rooting for ETH, guys. I don't have any right now, but I'm rooting for ETH. Do I still hold ETH? No, I do not. I have not held Ethereum for a few months now, and I've been kind of slowly reducing that position over time, but I sold the final bits of my Ethereum. Feels like, in the current market conditions, like, goddamn, I am glad I sold my ETH, man. I'm too sexy for my cat. I love the ETH hate, so delicious. I love ETH, man. ETH's one of my favorite coins in the market, and I'm sad that it didn't do better. I really am. The Ethereum Foundation, I think, has a lot to answer for when it comes to the lack of direction, the lack of fixing the main chain, the lack of driving demand for Ethereum. There's a reason all the meme coin stuff went over to Solana. It was just the place that was feasible to actually do things. Last market cycle, and none of these problems have been fixed, by the way, because today we saw gas GUI prices spiking up to like 100 GUI at some points, which meant that if you were trying to do a transaction on Ethereum, you're probably literally paying hundreds of dollars to do it. Like trying to pay back a vault or something like that, which is crazy. Final capitulation. Yeah. BlackRock have a plan with these staking yields. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of ETH staking yield ETFs coming out. Maybe that's going to make some kind of difference, but generally, Wall Street's been relatively uninterested in ETH. They buy Bitcoin, they like Bitcoin, but they haven't really been buying ETH very much. Should I buy ETH? Well, I can't tell you what to do, man, but I'll tell you this. If Ethereum drops another 90%, I am going to back up the truck and buy gargantuan sums of ETH. Because at that point, it's probably worth throwing some money into. I doubt things are going to get that crazy, but hey, it's crypto, man. You never know. A black swan you don't see coming. Crypto Kiwi. Yo, this is the thing, is I think the reason that the Trump tariffs have become a black swan, in my opinion, and there you can argue whether it's a gray swan or white swan, whatever. The reason I think it's kind of a black swan is because the market was not expecting that, right? The market was expecting tariffs. Those have been well telegraphed for a while. And people, the expectation was between like 10 to 20%. So when he came out with this absurd board of tariffs with like 49% for Vietnam and 34% for China, that was the black swan. Right now you can argue whether it's a black swan or not. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It after markets. So let's just say that something relatively unexpected that after markets. It's going to be a long bear market until 2028. You know, I was thinking about this, and at some point they're going to want to reverse markets, because if midterms are next year, and if markets are like this, and if basically Donald Trump causes a recession, stocks all crater, companies stop hiring, you know, all this sort of stuff, right? Guess who's going to lose the midterm elections? The Republican Party, probably in a landslide, crushing defeat if things are like this. They're doing this early in the term because they know that they then have a chance to turn it around by the end of the year, and next year could be absolutely fantastic. Q4, Q3 could be absolutely fantastic. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, it's until we get confirmation of anything, we're all just guessing. Nobody's got a crystal ball in these markets. Certainly not me. Airdrop videos coming. Yeah, I'll get around to it one of these days, man. Didn't even make it to sell. Nope. Was sell at Christmas and go away, apparently, this time. Why don't you buy back your Ethereum? It's been a disappointing asset, and I feel the money's better put elsewhere. That's the simple answer. It's not that I hate ETH, it's just that I think there's better risk reward plays elsewhere, to be honest, compared to Ethereum. If it goes stupid low, yeah, maybe I'll buy some then. ETH gave me nothing in 5 years. You know, at least I got out for like an 8x on my ETH. Could have got out a bit higher, like a 12x or something that I sold at 4K, but you know what? I'll take it. It's fine in this kind of market. It's all good. Thoughts on Caspa? I don't really think about Caspa very much, but much like every altcoin, it's in a horrific downtrend that won't be turned around until we get a change of winds of the macro scene. Do one or two more questions here for you guys, and then we will finish up for today. So that's all she wrote for the bull run. Well, we're obviously in a bear market right now. Question is this a very short-lived bear market? Is this just a totally news-driven, self-induced kind of thing that's going to last for a few months and then we're going to recover? Or is this something that is going to do so much damage that we're going to be screwed for a while? The markets are going to be down for a while. We'll see. Like I said, currently Bitcoin struggling to get back up with the 50-week EMA. If we can recover that by the end of the week, things still could look optimistic, but a lot of altcoins absolutely wrecked. Huge fear in the markets right now, which, whatever your opinion of the markets may be, you have to understand what the average investor's thinking in the market, right? And that's the tricky part, is that most investors are losing their effing minds right now and freaking out and panic selling. Hedge funds are panic selling. So again, we'll have to see what happens on U.S. market open here, but currently down about 2% in pre-market trading on the futures markets. I'll put that up on the screen there for you. So it's better than the minus 5% that it was a few hours ago, but we still probably going to see some red on U.S. market open. We'll see how it goes. After World War III, whoever has money left will do good in markets. Yes. Yes, indeed. Buy in the World War III dip, guys. Most countries are negotiating. Yeah, that's true. Most countries are negotiating. Even China and the EU are going to negotiate, but it's going to be a tougher negotiation that'll take more time to sort out. A lot of countries are rushing to negotiate, like India and Japan, the UK. Again, some of the biggest economies in the world. The Canadians are negotiating, the Mexicans are negotiating. So a lot of the big players right now are negotiating. The question is how those negotiations go and how long it takes to resolve, and if Donald Trump actually accepts any of those deals. Carl says, hi, I'm from Australia. Our market dropped 6% because you're a psycho president. Well, I'm from New Zealand, so he's not my psycho president. But New Zealand markets also get hit today. But hello, Carl. Nice to see you, man. What do I do if my Solana investment is going bad? Hard to say. When did you buy your Solana? What price you in at? Did you buy it at $200 and you're now down 50%? Did you buy it at $50 and you're now up 100%? Those are very different things, of course. And if you're bought it at 50 and you're up at 100%, your investment's not really going that bad. It's going okay. It's just down recently from its all-time highs, but you're still up. Are you staking it? What's your time frame? Where do you think it's going to go? All these kind of questions can kind of come into it. So if you think that Solana is done, or that we're going to enter a prolonged bear market and Solana's going back $20 or something like that, then those are different questions to consider for yourself, and whether or not you think it's a prudent move to cut your losses and move on, or to just stick it out, keep staking, and ride out whatever's going on in the markets right now. New Zealand, what's up? Why is Jerome not cutting rates and saving everyone's bags? Because Jerome doesn't give a shit about your bags. Jerome is not here to defend the stock markets. Jerome is here to make sure that inflation is low and that the job markets, Main Street, is taken care of to the extent that he does. So Jerome could do emergency rate cuts if he thinks that the job market's going to implode. He's not going to do emergency rate cuts to save the stock market. You have to understand that. But he could do emergency rate cuts to save the jobs market. Okay, and that's an important thing to keep in mind here. Or if he thinks that there's sort of adequate recessionary pressures brewing, that if he doesn't act now, then markets will be screwed. Or not markets, but the economy will be screwed, right? Jerome's here for the economy, not for the stock market. I know people say, oh, the stock market's not the economy. Yeah, but they're pretty heavily interlinked, because the stock markets are screwed. It makes it much harder for companies to do a lot of things, and the wealth effect goes away. People will buy less stuff. The top 10, 20, 30% of people own all the stocks, right? For the most part. And those people, when they're rich from stocks, guess what they do? They spend more, they buy more. When they feel poor, they don't do that so much. Maybe Banter and Rand are right for once. Rand saying bounce back recovery by the end of the day for US stocks. That'd be pretty awesome if it happened. Let's see how it goes. B Creed, dude, my say bags, brutal. Most countries are face palming. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Money gets transferred from the impatient to the patient, always in stocks, always in markets, always in crypto. Negotiating, haha, you're hilarious, mate. Keep drinking that Kool-Aid. Well, I don't know what you call it when literally you have Japan presenting President Donald Trump with a package of measures to win relief from U.S. tariffs. President Starmer seeks new trade deal. I mean, is that not negotiating? Maybe now John Trump doesn't want to negotiate. Maybe he's just going to say, get out of here. I just want to, like taking the Joker mentality. Just wants to watch it all burn, man. What about Ondo? Real world assets are hot. I like real world assets. It's in a downtrend like everything else, and will be susceptible to the same risk on, risk off attitudes and moves in the market that everything else is currently experiencing. Lark, I bought 10,000 XRP at $3.16. I'm currently down 40%. Should I sell? I can't tell you if you should sell or not, man. I think we get back to that risk reward conversation. The risk reward conversation is if you're selling now, you're selling primarily because you're afraid of further loss, obviously, right? Now, you might say, okay, well, I'm going to sell now and then rebuy lower. That'll be the smart move to make, right? well, maybe that's going to be maybe that's the play. Maybe markets are just going to keep crashing. We're going to enter into a much deeper, horrific bear market than most people are anticipating right now. And you'll be able to buy XRP again for 30 cents, right? And you'll be able to, or 50 cents or something like that. And so you'll be able to rebuy more than you even have now. You'll be able to rebuy 30,000 coins, 40,000 coins, something like that. And then have a few $1,000 cash left even after that. So you took a loss, but you get more coins later. The trick is, of course, being patient enough to wait, let that play out. And then, of course, obviously needing to be right on that. Top blasting's never easy, man. We've all been there. It's hard. I know. It's tough. Sometimes you also just need to take the loss and move on. I don't know what's going to go on with XRP, and I don't have a crystal ball for the markets and how all this trade war is going to resolve itself. Things get a lot worse before they get better, or things get better sooner than people anticipate. Depends on all the headlines we're going to see over the next few weeks. Okay, so yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one in terms of should you sell at a loss or not. Have the fundamentals changed for you for XRP, or is it just the price has changed? And buying, when you bought it at 316, what was the expectation? Were you hoping to just double your money? What was your risk tolerance on that when you bought in? Did you decide, okay, well, if it goes down by 25, 30%, then I'm out, or now you're down 40%? Was that your risk tolerance level? And that's why you're thinking, should I sell now? Or you just want to sell now because markets are effing terrifying right now and everybody's expecting things to go dramatically lower? New Zealand, you sound like you're from San Diego. Well, I actually grew up in Pennsylvania. Okay, so I guess it's tough. Where am I from, right? But I grew up in Pennsylvania. Moved when I was a teenager with my mom to New Zealand, where I've spent the majority of my life until I moved to Dubai. I lived in Russia for a while too. But anyway, that's besides the point. The majority of my human life has been spent living in New Zealand. I'm a New Zealander. And even though the accent does not match, I'm a Kiwi. Just picked up some BTC this morning. Chad, it's a Chad move, man. I love to see it. Love to see it. Long-term buys work out pretty well. Lark, do you expect QE in 2025? I'm not sure they're going to do QE. QE really requires some bad shit to happen. Cutting interest rates, ending quantitative tightening, that's probably going to be enough. Unless Donald Trump really does cause a terrible recession with all this stuff, and I'm really not sure he wants to cause a recession. Okay? Odd. You don't need to say it like that, man. Still simping for Trump, Lark. You can acknowledge that I don't like any politician. Let me just put this out here for you. I don't like any politicians. Okay? But you can acknowledge that a politician may have good policies for the cryptocurrency industry, right? Not having to like everything that they do, right? And I certainly don't simp for any politician. That's gross overall, simping for any politician. Now, I like Donald Trump. I think he's an absolute character, but obviously he does a lot of crazy shit too, and our wealth and bags suffer as a result of that. The question is, will he pull off the hat trick of making this all sort of catalyze into a mega market run later on? Remember, we're at the bottom of the business cycle right now, and as long as they don't cause a recession, there's a lot of space for markets to boom when all this trade war stuff gets resolved. Bro, didn't you hang out in a sauna with Putin last year? Fascinating. Oh yeah, me and Poots, man, were like this. Blood brothers, man. Guys, where do you come up with some of this stuff? I'm in full panic mode. Just breathe. We'll be okay. Here's something, and whether or not shit gets way worse and people like Celpera are correct and we go down to the 40K range again, which nothing's off the table in these markets. We have a lot of uncertainty and nobody knows where we're going over the next few weeks and few months, right? We hope that resolutions come and that there's negotiations and that the markets start to slowly recover, right? But nobody really knows, okay? But full panic mode. Yeah, I get it. It's been pretty rough recently, especially for anybody who is top blasting. Makes it even harder, right? But realistically, crypto's not going to zero, okay? I mean, okay, Bitcoin's not going to zero. Some of your altcoins are probably going to zero. That's the tough pill to swallow. But Bitcoin's not going to zero. Bitcoin's not going to zero. Stocks are largely not going to go to zero. But that doesn't mean we don't have to eat a lot of shit before whatever the next phase of the market is, the positive phase of the market is that comes. So anyway, guys, we're going to finish up there for today. It's almost an hour live stream, but I hope that you appreciate hanging out for a bit longer. I know these are extraordinary times, so let's have an extraordinarily long live stream. Actually, just an hour anyway, but you guys are awesome. I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you hanging out for a little bit. I know markets are effing crazy, but we will have good market days again, okay? It's bad today. Everybody's freaking out. It's probably nearing peak fear in the markets, and that means that we then start the slow road to recovery after we hit peak fear and wherever the market tends to bottom out at. Maybe it takes longer than we think. Maybe it happens sooner than we think. But a bottom will come, and then we grind on, and we make money again. And long term, we're going to win. Short term, we got to eat some shit. It is what it is. Thanks for joining. I'll see you back tomorrow. Peace.